What is up, guys? Welcome to another Tuesday, another Tradesmen Talk, another chance for us to connect and share some value with you guys. And as you know, our ultimate goal here is to expose the opportunities that exist in the trades, whether you're an existing business owner looking to improve or expand your business, or you're kind of sitting on the fence, maybe thinking about starting a business in the trades. Well, there's a lot of ways to be successful in a bunch of different industries if you're willing to work a little bit, look for the opportunity, and apply some consistent effort. And one thing that we really like to do with this podcast now is to bring on some other guests. You guys have heard me and Wilson talk to each other long enough. And so we wanted to bring on another great example of someone that was or has been successful in the trades, had a vision, and manifested it into reality. And so want to give you guys another opportunity to meet a good success story. And so today we have Adam, and he found great success in roofing. And so we'll kind of just dive in, Adam, if you don't mind. We'll create a conversation, ask you a few questions, and just share the audience about the opportunity that you found and made successful.
Sure. Well, hello, audience. My name is Adam Liebler. I started my company officially in May of 2021. It was kind of a interesting and long road to get there. I know Wilson through a door-to-door sales internship in college, and we actually worked together a little bit in solar after college, but that's actually kind of how I got into roofing. I was living in Arizona before Colorado, where I am now, and I was supposed to move to Austin, Texas to go work with Wilson and a bunch of other guys that I knew that had started a solar company. And 6 days before I was going to move, the CEO of the company, who was a friend of mine, called me and he goes, Adam, quick question. Have you signed a lease in Austin? I was like, no, I was going to crash on Wilson's couch for like a week while I find a place. And he kind of breathes a sigh of relief and he goes, okay, well, bad news. We're going under. And, it was kind of a big surprise. It wasn't any fault of the company. Their financing company went bankrupt and evaporated overnight. And that's really just kind of a death sentence to any company that works under them. It's a really unfortunate and hard thing to come back from. So there it was in Tucson, Arizona, with 6 days to find a new place to live and a new job. I actually overheard my roommate, who is another alumni of this door-to-door sales internship, overheard a conversation he had with another guy that was a door-to-door salesman in Colorado.
Door-to-door guys, man.
Yeah, we're a unique breed. We're everywhere. But I basically overheard this guy in Colorado talking to my roommate about an amazing week that he had in roofing. And it just kind of piqued my interest. And I said, well, I'm looking for something quick. Is this something that I could do? So I flew up to Colorado the next day and I shadowed him when he went out and sold sold roofs. Just kind of seeing if it was something that I could see myself doing, if Colorado was really the place I wanted to be, which I kind of knew that it was. At the end of the day, he said, all right, well, you've been following all day. Do you want to give a door a try? I was like, why not? So I knocked on a door without any real training and sold a contract. And nice. I thought that was the sign, like, yeah, this is the thing to do. So it's definitely not something that I had intended on getting into, ever really saw myself doing as, a younger adult. But got up to Colorado, started doing the job, and I realized there was really good money in it, a lot of flexibility, which was probably the biggest thing for me. Mm-hmm. And overall, just kind of seemed like a good fit. The first guy that I was working for initially seemed like a really generous, really good, caring guy. But about a year and a half in, maybe 2 years with that company, I noticed that my commission checks were getting considerably smaller. And I approached him about it and said, hey, what's going on here? And he's like, oh, yeah, we implemented this office fee. And the office fee basically took 30% of my profit on every single job.
Oh, man.
So he did this without consulting any of the sales reps, without informing us. I just kind of found that out. And I was like, that does not sit well with me. Yeah. So it was actually around that time that I had started a side project building cryptocurrency miners in my spare time. And one of my clients from that business was also in the roofing and construction industry. So I think when I was delivering the machine to them, I kind of said, oh man, like this, and this really stinks about the industry or this job. And they kind of went, huh, well, funny, we do it this way, and this way. So that sounds pretty good. So I started working for these guys, a considerably smaller company, was basically their only sales rep other than the owner. And they did a really good job grooming me to start my own business, which, on their part may not have been smart financially, but I am forever grateful for that experience because they just kind of let me do everything within the role, within the industry. And I realized after working for them for about 2 or 3 years, it's like, I can do this with a little bit of capital. I've literally done everything that the job requires, and I'm forfeiting, a decent amount of the profit to the owner that's really only supplying the brand at this point.
Mhm.
So that's kind of, it was just a logical thing. And I was really fortunate to meet another guy who worked in a similar position at a different company. We became great friends, and we kind of kicked this idea around of, could we do this on our own? And I was really fortunate with the crypto market and the stock market to be able to bankroll it. And we did it. And we started off with a goal of $1 million in revenue, which in that industry, that's an amazing year for one salesperson, like top notch. And Eric and I had, always been kind of above average, but never hit that marker. But I had set a goal of doing $1 million in revenue, and we worked really, really hard. 80 hours a week from May until really November, December, when the industry started slowing down. And around December, I started putting together the books, and I realized we're going to crush $1 million.
Nice.
So I think the key to that though was hard work. Everyone says, oh, you get lucky, and it's true, you do get lucky, but you get luckier the harder you work.
Yeah.
That has always stuck with me.
Yeah, that's great. So you're on your way to nearly finish your first year, right?
Correct. So we kind of did a soft launch in fall of 2020 while we were kicking this idea around. We basically approached some of our clients and said, hey, we're planning on starting a business. Would you guys be willing to switch if we gave you a better deal? And we did 2 jobs. They went smooth. We kind of saw the potential and what was required. May is when the hail starts, when the industry really kicks off. So come May, we were ready to go.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations on all the momentum and reaching your goal.
Thanks.
One thing that stuck out as you were telling us your starting story was that you had initial success in crypto and stocks. So it sparked the curiosity around asking you what made you decide to go into a service business if you were already successful on kind of a financial industry.
So I actually got more into crypto and stocks after I had got into the construction service industry. Okay. But I will say that one of the reasons that I've stuck with the service industry, like I already mentioned, money's good, flexibility is huge for me. But as I did this job, I really saw the value to the homeowner that I was bringing. Part of our job is to negotiate with the insurance company after a loss incident, hail, tornado, wind, what have you. Well, I worked this small town in Colorado, probably back in 2018. And I knocked on this lady's door and she said, oh yeah, we know we have damage. The insurance company, they already came out. They gave me a check for like $4,000. I was like, okay, well, do you mind if I do an inspection and tell you what I think, is damaged and ballpark what it's going to cost? She goes, go ahead. So I do this inspection and she has $40,000 to $50,000 worth of damage. The siding is shot, the roof is shot, the deck is shot, like everything, windows. And I told her, I was like, $4,000 is just not going to cut it. Right. If you took that settlement essentially and didn't pursue this, you'd be losing north of $40,000 in equity in your home. And this was a lady that really probably couldn't afford to lose $40,000 in equity. So we went to the table, with the insurance company on her behalf and ended up getting $48,000 to repair the house. So it's really good to stick up for the little guy, the homeowner, because 9 out of 10, if not more, homeowners have no idea what an insurance report looks like and what type of materials, they're quoting versus it's a complete foreign language to them. And unless you work in the industry, it's very hard to pick apart and, determine if something is adequate. So that's an amazing service. I mean, obviously the repairs, they have to get done, right? I guess that's, it's something that is really low hanging fruit. But people don't know about it. So there's always a demand for it. And if people can't help themselves, then they can get screwed more or less.
Okay. So it sounds like you kind of got lucky with maybe realizing the opportunity that existed in roofing. And then you applied some of the experience that you started developing by being a sales rep and realized that you have all these skills that you can apply to build your own business. And once you started doing that, or maybe even before then, would you say you started finding fulfillment in being able to help these people?
Definitely right off the bat, but I think as I saw more and more cases where the discrepancy and was larger and the value that we added was significantly more, it kind of grew on me. And now it's actually kind of fun when we get an insurance report that's just a joke of a lowball. I used to look at those. I'm like, oh my gosh, like it's going to be so much work to go back and forth with the insurance company over. Now I'm like, all right, like this is cool. I get to show the homeowner, our value and put them in a better position.
Yeah, I can imagine that's a great feeling knowing that your skill set's going to be a great value to them. And because you have this experience now, negotiating with the insurance companies it's kind of like a game for you.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Very much so.
And now that you're wrapping up your first year and you're realizing how lucrative owning a business in this industry can be, what are your thoughts now? What's the future look like?
Well, I mean, obviously money is always somewhat of a motivator. To me, it's never really been about like having the money. It's more so about the success that comes with it, kind of the confidence and, ability to teach other people that same, skill set, confidence to get to that point. So what really excites me about the future is basically hiring new people that, have a similar mind, similar goals in life, people that really like the flexibility of this industry so that they can, work really hard for 10 months out of the year and then go snowboard for 2-3 months, or travel or, pick up a hobby or start a side business. I think the opportunity that the job and the role offered to the sales rep is truly unique.
Cool. Well, that's awesome. I'm curious because the way you were brought up through this industry and you saw this business that you're working for kind of teaching you the ropes and giving you the opportunity to learn all these things. And you almost alluded to it being to their detriment because you left and started your own business. Does that kind of shape the way you look at how you're going to grow your business now?
I think somewhat. I always want to give the people that, are going to work for me the tools and knowledge to succeed. At the same time, I don't want to be similar to the first guy I worked for. He cut my commission. He screwed me out of some commission after I left, like all these things. And he would just basically put the blinders on the sales reps. And he's like, you just do this and this alone, and I'll take care of everything else, which makes a lot of sense for him, right? Because people are less, likely or able to go start their own business. But at the same time, when I was a sales rep for him, I didn't know enough to feel confident, talking to the homeowner or the insurance adjuster. It's like, oh, well, hey, someone else handles the estimates. I don't know what this is, right? So to be fully integrated into the role, I think there's definitely a certain amount of knowledge that any sales rep should have to feel confident. But at the same time, am I going to teach them about, business structures, different ways to raise capital? Probably not. If someone works for me and I develop a great relationship with them and, I'm kind of less reliant on them and they're telling me this stuff, part of me wants to help them, but I guess I haven't made a decision on that yet.
Yeah, maybe it could be an opportunity for the future.
When you look at the company that you left, did you feel like you had a lot of upward mobility there? Because it's one thing to have. Yeah, that's what I'm wondering, right? Like if they're having you do all the work and there's nowhere to go, it's like, why would I not leave?
Yep.
Yeah, I personally made that mistake when I first built my business because I was doing essentially what I was taught. And a very traditional way of growing a business is as you're building employees, you kind of traditionally they would show the employees only what they need to know and nothing more because they might rationalize it as other things being distracting, or maybe they're insecure about them taking their knowledge and becoming a competitor. And I found myself going down that path of leadership or that leadership style, and it certainly was to my detriment because my biggest fears came to fruition. And so, and it was almost a blessing because I was able to learn it. And then when I essentially restarted building the teams again, I focused on creating a culture of upward mobility, creating a path of showing them the same journey that I've gone through for those that want to lead their own teams. And it got to the point where I was only wanting to hire people who wanted to run their own business, because that became a way for us to grow, was through essentially partnerships from within.
Yeah.
And it's become a great way to build a culture, to build a team, and to be able to kind of multiply our operations, because you're grooming these leaders in a way that's not only well educated, but it becomes a win-win for everyone involved.
Yeah, no, I think that's really well put. And I'm trying to balance that, at the same time, not giving them the too much incentive to be a direct competitor. But right. I will say that one of the guys that we're hiring came from the commercial roofing side. Okay. And he hasn't done residential. We mostly do residential. We're really interested in him because he knew the industry. He was a good sales rep, and he could do commercial. So when we brought him on, we were just very honest, like, hey, we do some commercial, but our bread and butter is residential. And once you kind of fit into the role of residential, which he was actually interested in again, so, what have you, once you kind of fill in that role, if you want to spearhead, our commercial thing, like, you probably know more than us about that. And we would love to basically give you a position to teach the other sales reps about commercial and, take more ownership and, responsibility.
Yep. That's awesome. So when you started this roofing business, aside from the things you were doing with the crypto, is this your first business?
So the crypto was actually my first business. Okay. I guess you could say that technically the door-to-door books thing was my own business, but it was a very limited perspective. So in summer of 2017, and I guess I should preface this by saying I've been a crypto nerd since 2012, bought my first Bitcoin in 2013, day traded a lot back in the day.
When it was 400.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I blew it off. So win for me, huh?
Yep. Within my friend group, a lot of people know me as the crypto guy, just because I was very fortunate to hear about it early, get really excited about it, invest in it early. And I guess, it was summer of 2017. I forget how it came across my plate, but I started looking at mining because I've always built computers too. And I was like, I know how to put together a computer, and crypto is booming right now. This could be a fun, hobby side project, space heater for the winter. So I built a miner, and after a month or two, I was like, man, this thing is really profitable. Like, can I build another one? And I did. And I started sharing it on social media, telling all my friends. And I would say probably in December of that year, 2017, I started at so many friends. Wilson was one of them. Anthony Hendricks, another Southwestern book guy, all started asking me for, opinions, help putting these things together, running them. And my roommate noticed how much time I was spending just talking to people about this and, building for other friends. He goes, you should start a business. Like, you're spending a lot of time on this. I was like, well, can't be that hard. So filed with the Secretary of State, it was like $50 to create an LLC, created a bank account, and I posted on Craigslist. And I did not expect anybody to hit me up. The next day, I had 2 people call me. They're like, hey, I really want to build a miner. I have no idea, what goes into it, how to run it. So I took 2 people to Micro Center. We bought a bunch of components, assembled it, got it to run for them. I thought, cool, well, it's picking up. Nice. And that was my first business. We did about $100,000 in revenue in the first 3 months, maybe 4 months. and it quickly consumed more time than I had foreseen. But we got kind of hit by the crypto crash.
December 2018. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it was really went down, and I think it was like March of 18. It had a nice little dead cat bounce and then kind of crashed permanently. And a lot of my clients who I was managing machines for were like, man, the cash rewards, if you look at it in terms of dollars, like isn't great right now because the price is so low. We're spending money on power. And I tried to tell these people, like, trust me, it's worth it. Keep mining. But nobody listened to me. Everyone wanted to sell their machines. And a lot of them have since texted me, damn, I really wish you convinced me, or I really wish that I had kept these things running. But that was a big inspiration, motivation for me to start my own roofing business. I think it was around then I kind of had the idea of, maybe someday I could do this for roofing if I don't find another side project that, takes me away full time.
Yeah, there's something to be said about building a business around a need that you can foresee there being always being a need. The houses are always going to have roofs.
Yep.
So to build a business around that and to be able to see that the supply is so much lower than the availability of jobs out there, if you're willing to go out there and hustle and build a team, you're destined for some level of success.
What was y'all's biggest, after having completed year one, you hit your $1 million goal. When you look back, what was the biggest thing that caught you by surprise? What would you say was the biggest challenge that you did not foresee?
So I guess the biggest challenge that I didn't totally foresee was building inspectors being unpleasant sometimes.
Okay.
So I've been, I've got my political views. I'm not a huge government guy, and I always kind of joke at the inspection process. I'm like, hey, it's not that bad, right? Like I've never had a problem with the inspectors coming out. But we got a lot of business in the town of, well, I shouldn't say, in a certain town in Colorado, and we had to apply for the license, and it took forever. We had to get notarized letters from customers 3 years back, proving that we had, 3 years industry experience, and then all this other stuff. It's like, oh my gosh, this license is really tough to get. Like most of them, you just show them your insurance, your federal license, pay a fee, and boom, here's your license. So that should have been the first red flag. The inspector, I had met him after a couple jobs. He seemed really nice, really cool. Well, we had a little hiccup where we had scheduled 2 inspections and then canceled them the day of. And we did not know that you cannot cancel them online the day of. So the inspector drives out. Ladder isn't set up, which is part of what we have to do for the inspector. It's crazy that the building inspectors don't carry their own ladders. But anyway, he was not happy. He was like really not happy. And I actually didn't know that he was that unhappy. And then we had an actual mistake where we had a permit that was approved and paid for, but not issued. Someone in the office just left early, didn't approve it, whatever. So we broke ground the next day, and I realized like, oh shit, we don't have the permit. Like it says approved and paid for, but I don't have it. So I tried to do the right thing, and I called the building department. I'm like, hey, here's the deal. We've got this thing approved and paid for. It's just not issued. And we started work, and we have to call in the inspection. And initially they were like, oh yeah, it's no big deal. Like we'll call you back in 10 minutes and let you know. Well, 10 minutes later, the building inspector calls me absolutely irate. I mean, furious. And he issues us a stop work order. He's like, you guys can't do anything else. I'm like, dude, we are 90% done with tear off, right? Like this lady's not going to have a roof. Like what do we need to do to get the permit? Like we've done everything we need to. And he's like, oh, well, since you started work, now we have to wait for the senior permit technician who is unavailable till 5. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to tell this lady, the homeowner, like, sorry, but we cannot continue today because of this issue with the permit. Luckily, the homeowner was really cool with it, but it just seemed like something that could have been so easily fixed on their part, and it caused us a great deal of stress and concern. Everything ended up fine. We got the permit the next day, came back, finished the roof, but it's just like, why does that happen?
Really, I mean, you'd think the inspector hearing like, all right, you guys are 90% tear off would be like, all right, you know what, at least finish that part and get this to where it's going to be stable.
So
Right?
he did actually. He issued us a stop work order, and I was like, "Hey, we got this thing 90% torn off. Like, we can't have decking exposed, the wood of the roof exposed, for a long period of time." So he told us to finish removal and then dry it in, put in the felt, the underlayment, so that it's moisture tight. So I told my crew to do that, and at the same time, I drove to the building department to see if I could, just say, "Hey, I'm here. Like, what do we need to do? I'm willing to do whatever." When I got to the building department, the inspector drove to the house and yelled at my guys for drawing it in, which he had told us to do. He's like, "I issued you a stop work order." And I'm just like, this doesn't make any sense. Again, everything ended up fine, but that stress and concern over something that seemed totally out of my control was probably the biggest thing I was not really ready for.
Yep. Well, I mean, that's, I think, why owners get paid the most, right? Like, you're the ones that have to carry that stress. And I don't think until you've been under the gun, it's hard to describe to other people what that's like, right? When there's hundreds of $1,000s riding on your ability to guess which way the wind's about to blow. Because I always called them Lord Farquaads. Like the little guy with too much power in a position that doesn't really matter, that's just working his best to make my life hard. Because we had a lot of that in solar too. Those it's crazy, some of the rules they set in place. You just go, why? In Massachusetts, if we were doing flashing on a roof, we had to have we had to have an electrician on site. I'm like, we're not touching electricity, and it doesn't matter. It's an electrical job. Okay, guys, I hear you. We'll pay this guy to twiddle his thumbs. That sounds great.
So that's a pretty good description. Some of these guys, the inspectors, they actually don't even do their jobs. And it's sad. I hate to throw them under the bus, but I have literally witnessed them drive up to a house that I've called an inspection on, step out of the car, look at it from the street, nod, sign the paper, get back in the car and drive off. I'm like, you give me crap for, that, and you're not even inspecting. It's like the one job. So it's frustrating, but another challenge is moving past that and just not getting frustrated and just kind of learning to deal with it and do the best you can to avoid those situations and not let that kind of ruin the relationship with the inspector. Because at the end of the day, you kind of do just have to brown nose and suck it up. Like he's got to sign the permit, right? Yep. If I'm mean to him, if I am, unpleasant, like they could pull our license, and that would be huge cost.
Lord Farquaad is still the king. Yeah.
But I will say that was kind of an isolated incident. I haven't had, any other issues with building inspectors at other municipalities. So I don't think that is the standard, but I do think that there are those people, like you said, the Farquads, that kind of have a chip on their shoulder and they just like to assert authority, whether it's, relevant or not.
Yep. Yeah. What's one thing looking back? So after the first year, right, that was the biggest thing you didn't expect. If you go back and do one thing differently, what do you think it would be?
That's a good question. Well, a lot of the things that we had wished we did differently, we are now doing. So when we had our largest hailstorm, where we generated the most business, we actually doubled our yearly revenue in roughly 3 weeks.
Oh, wow.
It was great. But as someone who wears all of the hats, that can spread you a little thin. And I've always kind of been the guy to want to do everything, because if I do it, at least I know it's right, or I'll be willing to take the blame for it. But it was just tough to do everything and also keep selling. We essentially had to stop selling just because we were so backlogged on paperwork and builds and all this stuff. So to get some help that you can trust, and that's what, like I said, one of the things that we're doing, delegate responsibilities that aren't revenue generating, so that you can spend your time generating revenue and just being as efficient as possible.
That's a huge lesson. And it's hard to do, right? Especially when the company's new, because it's your baby and, you want to make sure everything's done perfectly. But I was listening to, I want to say it was Mr. Beast, the YouTuber. I was listening to one of his podcasts. I'm just fascinated by this kid. He's 22 and has like $300 million businesses off of creating YouTube videos. And one of the things he said is he was like, nobody's ever going to do it as good as I can, right? But if they do it 90% as well as I do, and they can commit 50 hours to it, but I do it 100% as well as I do, and I can only commit 2 hours to it, odds are they're going to do better than me.
I like that.
Yeah, it's a really good realization, because you can't be the bottleneck to your own success.
Right.
But you can, but you shouldn't be. Maybe.
Yeah. That's
a better way of describing it. That's awesome. So you guys are now in the process of hiring. Have you set your goal for this next year?
So I've kicked around some ideas, and I think I've got, kind of a couple different types of goals. 3 types of goals I have are salesman recruited, overall production, and third, reputation reviews. So in terms of the salesman recruited, I'd really like to get 4 or 5 new guys. Like I said, we pretty much got 2 working with Thinking Ahead, the Southwestern company's placement headhunting firm. We're pretty optimistic that we're going to come into the season with at least 4 or 5. I think production, I'd like to do between 4 and 5 million. Okay. I still need to kind of sit down with my business partner and talk about, hey, what do we think realistically? What's going to make us stretch? Just figure out something concrete and solidify it. So in terms of reviews, though, going back to my door-to-door sales days, I always had fun doing competitions with people. So my business partner and I are going to do a competition on who can get the most good reviews this season. Haven't figured out what we're going to bet on it. It could be something really silly and stupid, or it could be paying for the company trip in December.
Love it. Tesla. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, we got one pre-ordered.
Yeah, the Cybertruck, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like that. Well, and I like that the goals kind of fit the key components of the company, right? Because you have to have good delivery. That's something we talk about all the time, right? It's client acquisition, delivery, and systems. You got to have those 3 things. And without that, it really does fail. So it's cool that you guys are, benchmarking those things and have a method of tracking it.
Thanks.
Yeah, man. It's really impressive to see. So what would you say to somebody that's thinking about doing something similar, right? Maybe they're, considering, because it's a big fear, like to sell all your stocks or to sell a huge portion of your stocks to go start a business.
Or your crypto.
Yeah. I mean, it's a big boy move, right? And most people are afraid of that. If there was somebody in a similar situation listening to you after having had this experience, what would you say to them and why?
Oh man, that's a good question. I think it kind of depends on the person. Not to backtrack here, but in 2020, I actually had the worst year of my life. And on February 24th, I shattered my femur while snowboarding and almost died on the mountain. 2 weeks later, COVID hit. Middle of the summer, someone really close to me had a stroke. It was actually a brain hemorrhage, and terrible news. A lot of bad things happened. And I knew I wanted to start this business, and I was having trouble with the day-to-day of everything. And I thought to myself, like, hey, this, I do want to do this, but I want to approach it with the right mindset. So I essentially quit working at the end of the season and became a full-time snowboard instructor, which was obviously not a huge moneymaker, but I was on the mountain every single day, and I got to deal with, all the shit that I had gone through, and it allowed me to come to the plate with a clean slate. There were a lot of other things that I did to kind of get ready for it. And a lot of it just comes down to personal habits, going to the gym, eating healthy, reading, whatever you feel is, very constructive, the things that you should do. That when you start doing those things and you start doing all of them, you develop a sense of confidence and, motivation that you just can't get otherwise. And I think if you don't have the confidence or the habit to go to the gym 5 days a week, it's probably going to be really tough to discipline yourself to work the amount that you need to when push comes to shove. Yeah. So it's about having the right mindset, making sure that there's nothing holding you back mentally, and also just putting in the work in all the other areas of your life that's going to push you through that toughness later on.
Yep. Amen to that. Yeah. It's really getting comfortable with the uncomfortable, right? Yep. Because starting a business is inevitably going to be uncomfortable. There are going to be things that catch you off guard and hit you pretty hard.
Just accepting that. can often be something
absolutely.
that is overlooked. Is they kind of think, oh, if I buy this course or if I go through this program, or even if they just rely on their experience that they had and they just assume that they know all the information and they just go after it, assuming it's going to be a smooth ride, not accepting that it's going to be a challenge and that they're going to have to get comfortable being uncomfortable, then it can often slap them in the face and they can quickly come to conclusions why they should stop, rather than knowing that they expected this and here it is. So now let's just push through it.
Yep. Yeah. One thing I told myself, I spoke it out loud every single day from probably March to May. May was when I started the company. Was I'm ready for this, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm going to appreciate the tough times because I know that I'm going to push through them, and I know that I'm going to become a better person because of them. So when things did hit the fan, when the building inspector is screaming at me over the phone over some trivial office mistake, I told myself, I could feel my blood pressure rising. I was like, oh my God. It's like, I told myself I was ready for this. This is part of the job, and I expected it. Obviously you don't expect it every day, but there are,
That's awesome.
Yeah, it sounds like you're certainly living up to the challenge, and I'm looking forward to seeing where you're at in another year, man.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. Me too.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to share what you've been able to accomplish with the audience, and I imagine it provided some inspiration and some insight into what they themselves can do, regardless of the trade. Just accepting the challenge and being willing to go after it and being willing to continue to learn. Just like you, they might be surprised with where they end up in their first year.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, if any of your viewers are, have questions for me or are curious about something, I'd love to chat with them. Arnold Schwarzenegger has a really great speech called The 6 Rules of Success. And his last rule is to always give back. And he said, when you give back unselfishly, you will attain inner peace and, that can't be bought elsewhere. And I think that's really true. So I encourage anybody that does get into this position that, has some success to try to share it with others. And I promise you that will make you feel better than making some money.
Heck yeah.
What's the best way people can reach out to you if they do have some questions?
Good question. I can put up my email. It's adam@llcontractingcode.com.
Sweet. Yeah, we'll put that in the show notes.
Sweet.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, all right, guys. Hope you enjoyed another episode of Tradesmen Talks, and we'll see you next week, same place, same time. Have a great one.
Everybody.